Go. Oh, good to see you, Fraser. Hey, everyone who doesn't know, this is Fraser Leith, Associate Director here at Inside. He looks after our permanent recruitment team, both across Auckland, Wellington, and if we're doing any work in another region as well. Thanks for your time, Fraser. I think today we just want to give a wee bit of information, to candidates who might be wondering what is going on in the permanent market. Yeah, 3 questions for you today, my friend. The first one is that probably the biggest one that we're getting all the time. What is the market doing, Fraser? How are you finding the permanent market, permanent recruitment market, and maybe 2 specific locations, but there might be more to it. If I said to you, hey, what's the Wellington market like and or the Auckland market? Are they the same? Are they different? Yeah, how do you feel it's going? Or
Yeah, kia ora, Troy, and thanks for having me, obviously. Yeah, so it's a really interesting one at the moment. I think we kind of look at the market, and we do get the question often around what is the market as a whole doing, and I think it's quite a hard question to answer at the moment. I think what we saw, when we went into lockdown, for example, which is going back a wee way now, but essentially the permanent market did dry up quite a bit. We had a number of processes that were with organisations that went on hold during that period. Then we did have some organisations that looked to continue through, giving confidence that they had the ability to bring people through virtually and induct people virtually into their organisation. So during that period of time, things did dry up quite considerably. I think what we're starting to see collectively across both markets is that things are starting to drip feed back. And what I mean by that is that new opportunities are starting to drip feed back. I think if we look at, say, Auckland versus Wellington, we do have 2 quite different markets. Wellington being largely government sector led, which I think, truth be told, through all of this COVID-related activity, government has continued on, and government, through people that I'm speaking with, has continued to remain quite busy. So there are still big programs. Obviously, we've got an election coming up as well, which impacts that. So there is still a lot of activity happening within the public sector. And I'll get to the job side of that, but within Auckland is quite different. So Auckland obviously largely is private sector, commercial sector up there. So I think initially we did see things, starkly different in Auckland, and that the permanent market did dry up considerably. I think interestingly enough, though, we are seeing quite a bit of activity coming through our Auckland market. But I would say that that's very specifically at a senior level. So where we're seeing the gap up there, I would say, is probably in your, if we were to put a dollar amount on it, maybe your 80K through to 150, that has dried up a wee bit. And we're seeing much more in the senior, whether it be heads of unit or chief executive or general manager level. I think there's a couple of reasons to that I'm noticing, and that, whether it be organisations who financially have felt a wee bit of pain through COVID, where there might be a requirement around some cost recovery, so bringing in senior level expertise to help do that, or whether they just don't have the right capability to take a business through what the next period may look like. I think as well as that, we've also seen in some cases, so leadership at this time can be tested and in some cases exposed. So I think, again, slightly different skill set as we look to bring organisations through this next period of time, which is, for the private sector can be quite uncertain. So there is just maybe a requirement to bring a different skill set in. So we're seeing it at chief executive, general management, CFO level, CIO level in Auckland's probably where we're noticing the activity, and less so at that kind of middle market level where we just see perhaps more critical hires, I would say. Wellington, again, my take on the Wellington market is that things are coming back to normal. I think that the reality is, from a public sector perspective though, obviously the government has announced that there is considerable amount of spending around COVID recovery. So I think in most cases, government organisations are having to look at where they're going to pull some of that funding back or that money back. So from a permanent recruitment perspective, there is more around critical hires. So we're not seeing so much of the generalist, again, sitting in that middle market. We're not seeing as much as that. The roles that we are seeing that come to us are roles that you would deem critical hires for an organisation. But it is, yeah, I think it remains for the last wee while, it does remain patchy. But I think the trend is that we are starting to see more and more leadership opportunities coming through. I think for good candidates, they are still finding work.
Yeah, it's interesting. You make a good point, because I think, and you'll hopefully add to this, but I think where perhaps senior candidates or others have maybe put all of their hope in a recruitment agency to look after them and find them that opportunity, I think what I'm hearing is, is that specific senior specialist leadership role might still go to an agency, but I'm certainly hearing or seeing a trend that the in-house recruitment or direct hiring has certainly increased. And with that direct hiring has come, a huge volume of candidates. So, again, these are probably my words, but I wouldn't mind your views on it. If you're a candidate at the moment, you're one of a large pool of candidates applying to a particular role. So, yep. Are there pieces of advice you have for people who are going, why aren't I hearing back? Or, what's going on? Is there, I don't know what they can do about that at the moment, but there is large volumes.
That is a really good point, and that's a really I would say accurate observation that naturally we have seen application numbers swell. So Auckland in particular, we always seem to have higher application numbers in Auckland. That has dramatically increased, and I would say that a lot of organisations who are recruiting themselves will be feeling that pain around just the sheer volume of candidates that they're going through. If I'm a candidate and I'm putting myself in the candidate's shoes, so I spend a lot of my time with senior candidates exactly around that conversation. I think, as you move up the chain, there are fewer of those opportunities available. So I guess the advice that I'm giving, particularly with senior candidates, I think it's advice I would give in a good market anyway, but I think now is the opportunity, and I say opportunity because I think for good talent will always find work. So I say the opportunity that presents for a lot of people is actually now is a good time to take the time to reflect, almost by looking in a mirror around yourself. What is your purpose around what you do, and what are you hoping to achieve? Not so much just within the work, but within your personal life as well. So I think that it is, rather than looking for the dream job to be advertised through a Seek, for example, I think that opportunity to sit and start with yourself and look a wee bit inward around what is my purpose, therefore what am I, passion is a word that gets thrown around way too much, what is my passion around what I do, and therefore where do I see myself adding the most value, particularly important with senior leadership, because I think when you're going, I think anyway, that you have to believe in your purpose, and therefore that ability to sell your vision, share your vision, get people excited, bring people along on the journey with you and transform an organisation. It starts with you and your purpose and the alignment with the organisation. So I think starting there is really important, because once we understand that a wee bit better, we can therefore, it's almost like I think you and I have been working on a bit of market insight around, we refer to it as a pick a path, but you can, once you understand yourself and your purpose, I think you can better articulate the types of industries that will be specific to you, the types of organisations that sit within those industries, and then therefore within those organisations, whose organisation's values align with yours. If we look at a purpose of an organisation, it's finding that alignment there. And I say that, which leads to my next point of advice that I would give to a lot of people. It's around something that gets really underlooked by candidates, but is actually very paramount, is around formalising your networks and spending the time investing in your networks. So the reason why I bring up the first point is because once you've understood that, and the types of industries, organisations that best align with your purpose and your values, then you can start to better identify who are the networks within that I can be connecting with, and formalising those informal networks. Because I think, truth be told, the agency plays a role in helping you find your next role. But I think a lot of that work that you do, the pre-work that you do, and the formalising those networks will ultimately lead you to the right outcome. And I think you will therefore be led to a more fulfilling role within an organisation whose values align with yours, and therefore your ability to live your purpose, give back, and do your best work. So I think it's people get caught in the trap of just looking for the job, I think now is just as good as opportunity to understand that piece, because when you are trying to differentiate yourself from all the other senior leaders who are looking for work at the moment, you are more compelling when you understand what your purpose is, and your ability to share your story with people is much more.
Yeah, that's exceptional advice. I think, yeah, hopefully people get a chance to listen to this, because I think that's exactly, the volume shouldn't scare you, because when you're really aligned, somehow you'll stand out, I guess, is the trick. It does come through from a interviewer's perspective when the interviewee or candidate, is researched, just purposeful in their delivery. You can feel that connection to it, which is great. And typically those technical skills become not less relevant, but they are clearly visible already. So then the piece that takes you over the edge is what you're saying. And another quick point, and again, I don't know whether you've seen it yet, just salaries. Have you seen any effect on salaries, any movement on salaries? Are clients talking about making changes to salaries, or where something might be, where it might sit?
No, I haven't, in short. So I think, if anything, we've probably seen, if there was a change, I think it's probably maybe a more of a driver to look at the option of bringing somebody on a fixed term contract versus a contracting. But I don't want to talk too much about contracting, because others know that market much better than I. But yeah, so I don't think salaries have been impacted at this point. I think, as I say, the roles are typically critical hires, so we probably just might see a slight reduction in the volume of work, but I don't think the salary piece has yet been affected, and I don't think that will be the case going forward either. Interestingly, private sector, where people will be impacted on their bottom line, almost certainly, but even still, the competition is there to find good talent. So talent commands a certain level of salary. So I don't see that being impacted as much. It's interesting because whilst we might see unemployment numbers creep up, I still think that the same sort of not lack of talent, but the same competition for talent still exists. So we're not seeing, really specialist roles all of a sudden, a whole lot of people becoming available in those markets. So I think good talent in your sector, in your market, still kind of rises to the top. So I don't see that changing too much.
That's awesome. Is there any advice for someone, as they look towards the end of the year? I've got a feeling there's reason for optimism. I think when I'm listening to you, there's reason for optimism. But yeah, is there any other wisdom or information you're sharing with candidates that might be worth knowing outside of what you mentioned, around purpose and I suppose connecting with that?
No, I think. Look, I would just encourage those who are looking for maybe what their future opportunity looks like. I would just be going, the market for the next period of time may be a little bit up and down. And I think less so of the COVID, obviously that will have an impact on it. But I think, as we creep into an election as well, that just typically just sees a little bit of uncertainty around the market. I would just really strongly encourage anybody who is listening that if they are thinking about what their future opportunities look like, that now is the time to be investing in yourself, understanding your purpose and your values. And then I think actually utilizing this time to formalize your informal network. I think that sets you up not only for your next opportunity, but I think future opportunities off the back of that. And I think, truth be told, we're a nation of people who want to help others in most cases. So I think that most people, when they reach out to networks, those networks want to help them. So I couldn't stress that enough, that I think obviously we as recruitment consultants in an agency, we form that network, but I think there are other people within your network who you may have worked with who can vouch for you, who can champion your application or champion your purpose and your values. Those are the people that will help you steer yourself towards a fulfilling role in an organisation that aligns.
Awesome, Fraser. Great session. Thank you very much.
No
Have a good rest of your day.
You too. Take care.